Welcome along everybody to the round one here at Wuhan Open, and a little bit of a delay here unfortunately after the TNT had a late change in the broadcast, so it's not going to be Trump against Lee Hon-yu. It's going to be the current world champion Zhao Xintong playing against Matthew Stevens. That's why we're a little bit behind on the scoreboard now, but Stevens is on the table and is very much on a break here after Xintong couldn't take an early chance of his. Now is Stevens with the chance as he comes into this match very much as the underdog, Matthew Stevens, of course being against the home favourite, the crowd favourite, and the current world champion, Zhao Xintong. What a match this is going to be. Of course, provisionally was going to play the winner of Jutrom Faraka-Jape match in qualifiers, but in the end, because of the couple walkovers and the draw and the pairings had to be adjusted slightly, and it meant that Stevens was always going to end up with Xintong, but so far he's on a really good break here, Matthew Stevens. I would say doing everything right there. The position does seem to be with a slight concern for him, as a couple of reds are in difficult position there. Pink seems to be very much surrounded by reds and wouldn't really go into any of the corners apart from the middle. And now Stevens has a difficult black to cut, and in the end the black stays out, so a waste there of a chance, I would say, because Stevens really wasn't under any sort of pressure, you know, on the previous shot on the red, but hasn't managed to land on the black easily and clearly. And in the end, had to play a risky shot, sacrifice the position on the red, which in the end he managed to get, but of course the black is now blocking the right corner pocket. Xintong now will have to use the rest, try and potentially have the first point of his. Hello, I've got my favorite moderator in the chat already. Thank you very much. Xintong against Stevens. Yeah, still, I would say it's actually a better match because you always have the experience and the sort of, you know, the capability of Stevens, what he brings to the table, even at 50 years of age. It was always going to be an interesting match. With Hon-yu and Trump, this one is more of a straightforward win for Trump in my view, and I think especially with Stevens winning an early couple of frames, I think it would have been really good match to see, but Stevens hasn't managed to take his chance here, and now Xintong will try and punish him for that. 8 points on the board, still has 3-4 reds in the open play, 1 on the left cushion. They ain't airing the Trump match, so that's what it was. They are, but on the other subscription channel, and I just thought, you know what, really late on, if they are broadcasting it on TNT too, you may as well just do the match that I thought was going to always be better, because this one seems like it's got a potential decider to me, unless Xintong can run away with it. Whereas Hon-yu Trump, you know, when you've got number 1 against number 55, especially with Hon-yu being very much the up-and-coming Chinese lad, I just think Trump will stroll through that one. Whereas here, if Stevens can use his chances, which so far he hasn't managed to do so, I think it'll be an interesting match. Hi there, Ahmad. Thank you very much, Kami. Thanks for joining. Nice to see you, my friend. Good stuff here. Xintong on the break. Still continues to go strong here. Try to dispatch the easy reds, which Stevens has left quite a few off to him. And now 21 points on the board, making that 22 with the red. Has a nice little angle on the black to go back in behind for the red once again. So looking to equal the points tally for the frame. I think with the current scoring, the current points that he has on the board, he will need the last red that is sitting on the cushion. I think he's got 2 options here. He can either try and play in behind it or try and cannon it, but that shot he's played there wasn't a good shot at all, because he tried to run through the reds, making them split, but hasn't generated any Q power on it, and now has ended up awkwardly on the black. It does remind you of the Stevens position a couple of shots ago, but Xintong takes his chance. The black is in as he landed on the red with a little shake of the head there. I don't think he has, because didn't seem to be too happy with the result that he got in the end. Yeah, and you can see the confirmation on the screen. So you can try and be playing the bottom of the bunch. I mean the bottom red of the bunch, but It's a difficult cut, and with the cue ball resting right on the cushion, it's probably not the shot that you want to be taking on. So, unless he goes for an extreme cut here, I would expect him just to play cue ball towards the ball cushion, which is exactly what he's done. So a break of 37, and Xintong is now very much back in this frame, but still, no man is able to do the damage in one visit to the table. And now, work hard, play hard. Hello, nice to see you in the stream as well. And yeah, now Stevens will have his chance to get back in the frame. He's got two potential cuts here, nothing too easy to his name, but both of those will see the cue ball going back to the ball cushion, which I think Stevens will take at this point. You can see a nice little 3 cushion escape there of the cue ball, looking to land straight on the cushion, and does exactly that. So really good shot there from Stevens, not leaving anything easy for Xintong. You know, Matthew Stevens is one of those players, you know, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Neil Roberts and Mark Selby will tell you, he's one of those players that no matter which ranking he is in the WST Tour, he will still be one of those that you fear to play against. And is Xintong gonna feel that himself? Good safety shot there from the Chinese player. The world number 7. Of course, winning the last year World Championship and having a decent campaign overall. Hasn't had a brilliant start to this season. Of course, hasn't managed to get to any later stages of either Shanghai Masters or Saudi Arabian Masters. But now we'll be looking to once again try and do the damage at the China Grand Prix and of course this tournament, the Wuhan Open. Very much being held in China. Stevens now, after careful consideration, goes for the shot of a cross double, but hasn't done too good of a job with the cue ball and left Xintong with a straightforward opening with the cue ball going back towards the yellow, brown and the green. It's a little bit of a wasteful shot there from Stevens, especially to the attacking player of the quality of Xintong. So needs to make sure he cues this one perfectly. Needs to focus on the cue ball a lot more than on the potting angle. He's done that, but he played for either the pink or the blue. He hasn't played for any of the ball colours. And with him missing the pot, that means Stevens now has, if not a straightforward opening, but an opening that is going to be a lot kinder to him than the one he had a couple of shots ago. So now Matthew Stevens in with a chance here of having a second visit to the table, and hopefully the last one of this frame, looking to do all the damage from the second time of asking. Has got 3 reds really at open play, with him being equal on points tally now. Still will need the last red that is resting on the cushion. So 38 points on the board here, looking to, with the black out of the equation, looking to make that around 16 more. So we'll be 16 points ahead, so we'll need a red, a colour, and potentially transition to the yellow as well, which is not going to be easy if you look at where the red is. But now needs to make sure he dispatches those 2 reds in the open play comfortably. And at least get himself any sort of gap here. I think it's very important for Stevens to get ahead in this match, because if Xintong tries to sort of build a gap on him, it will be really hard to catch here. Now Stevens, 51 point score already. Looking to try and capitalize on the last red of them all. Taking a little hesitation there, just to make sure he lands on the right side of the pink to be able to do the damage. Still, no signs if he's going to try and cannon that red, or he's going to try and land perfectly on it. Well, whatever their plan was, he absolutely scuffed that shot on the pink, and now the frustration you can see there, he's not happy with himself because he's landed on the pink to go into the yellow, green and brown bunch, where he would have liked to go the other way around and land on the black cushion there. So could be the end of break. Could try and go for a snooker here. You can see 15 points clear with the red sitting on the cushion. Wouldn't be the worst idea to try and get a couple of points, so you can potentially put a colour safe. especially if you put one of the brown or yellow balls on the cushion. It will be really hard to transition from the red that is already difficult onto the color and then onto the yellow that is going to be on the cushion. So I think that's what he's going to do. So he decides to do that with the blue, obviously making the safety in mind as well. So a clever shot. Didn't quite put it right on the cushion there, but made sure that he got the snooker with it. So still a clever shot. The problem for Stevens is the red is on the cushion, so if Xintong is going to be rolling up to it, it's really unlikely he's going to give any sort of chances here, but he's clearly not rolling up to it. He's trying to hit it full ball in the face. Has the red ball landed safe? It hasn't. The cue ball is not really on the cushion either, so a lot of distance between the two balls, and the red is sitting quite close to the green pocket. Still pretty straight on that one, so it won't be the easiest shot to cue. Once again, needs to put a lot of power on that, and what a really good play there from Stevens, and a really good pot there. It's not Xintong's point. It's Stevens here with a chance to surely close off the opening frame in being 16 points ahead already. Looking to make that 18 with a yellow, and he absolutely missed that yellow by a mile there. I don't know what on earth he was thinking, because he hasn't really landed on any of the other colors. What was that shot exactly? I mean, what a horrible shot to play that was. And now Xintong here with a chance. After being behind for the entire frame now, can he potentially be the one to win it? With Stevens very much not doing enough on that shot of his, and missing the yellow by some margin. You know, it was almost the entire wall of China he missed it by. And now Xintong on the green lands really well on the brown. The only problem for him is, of course, the transition from brown and blue, and potential transition from blue to the pink. Reminder yesterday, the pink will be the color that haunts Zhao Xintong, because he had a chance yesterday against Julian Boyko to make a maximum. He was on 134 points, and he only had the pink and the black to get, but he has missed a straightforward pink. Walked out to his chair with a smile on his face, but as I said yesterday, I think he would have been absolutely devastated, and once again hasn't landed perfectly on the blue here. So looking to do all the damage. Hasn't really worked out for him so far in the frame. Hasn't been too clinical, Xintong. And Stevens wasn't able to do that either, so potentially and try and roll it into the corner pocket. Now decides against that and just goes for a safety shot. So still anyone's frame for the taking here, as this safety shot has ended up with Stevens in a little bit of trouble here. Potentially having to play around the black and pink in between the two and swerve around the colors. Needs to make sure he catches the right side of the blue, and he doesn't, because he catches the black quite severely. Puts the black ball on the cushion, and now I think he'll be put back to exactly where it was. As Xintong gets 7 points as a foul. So a really clever safety shot there from the Chinese player. And now this will take some time for the referee to put the black ball and the cue ball exactly where they were, as he starts with a black ball. So I think for Stevens here, it's a really difficult shot from two perspectives. With the black ball and the pink ball, well, you know, if you take into account that he won't hit the black ball this time, with the black ball and the pink ball being pretty much in open play, you can't really afford to be giving blue one away, because Xintong will only need the blue and the pink to get this frame won and go 1-0 ahead. As now the black seems to be pretty much sorted here with the referee. So some time will be spent to recover the cue ball as well. Yeah, once again, as we head into the last 3 balls, Stevens has a difficult safety shot here to play, and it's 53-all here in the opening frame. So it's probably started exactly as, you know, someone would have liked, especially if you're neutral, with Trump already leading against Lu Hongyu with 1 frame advantage to 0. A couple of other matches as well. Ishpreet Singh Changa is playing against Zhao, another Chinese fan favorite here. And he's already 1-0 ahead, is the Chinese player. Stephen Maguire, Jimmy Roberts and Tom Ford will also be featuring in a little while, as Stevens has managed to get the blue this time around and hasn't really left it in a brilliant position there for Stevens, but you would feel like Xintong will be sort of tempted to take this blue on, especially with his capability of, those middle range shots. Stevens doesn't want to be losing this frame as he'll haunt him badly, and what a shot that was from Xintong, really smooth and right into the heart of the pocket there. And now lands really nicely on the ping, so the frame ball here, and the damage is done. So the frame is over, and it goes the way of Zhao Xintong here, who leads now by 1-0. Both players have had decent chances in the opening frame, but it's the Chinese player that comes out on top in this one. Steven, did he deserve to win this one? Probably not, because too many errors. And when you're up against sort of the best playing, maybe the most informed man in snooker, if you talk about last season, probably not this season just yet, but the attacking opportunities of Xintong and just his free flowing of play, he's just too dangerous to be leaving all those chances that Stevens has left him with. He's had, 2 or 3 chances to close out the opening frame. He hasn't managed to do that, and Xintong didn't need a second invitation at all. Xintong looks solid. Yeah, I think he's just really calm, and he knows he'll get his chances against Stevens, because Stevens is the player that likes to play aggressively, and especially recently, his safety play hasn't been at the level it should be when you're a sort of top 16, top 32 player, which Stevens at the current world ranking system isn't, of course, with the age probably catching up to him as well. But Xintong knows that he can sort of be in those patient safety battles, which he doesn't mind at all. But when he has those chances, he knows he can afford to be missing some, as long as he pots all the other ones. So he's done exactly that, Xintong, and now leads by 1-0. As I said, I think Xintong could well run away with this match and sort of book his spot to the last 32. And Stevens will have to do his best to make sure that doesn't happen. But if we see a lot of frames like the opening one, it will be a difficult job for him to do. Once again, all the other tables so far are quiet at the moment. As I say, Zhao and Jimmy Robertson are now leading by 1 frame each. And reminder that this pair will face the winner of Wang Xingbo against Stephen Maguire. That match is up and running again. As you can see, Trump on the other table number 2, which you can watch on Discovery Plus channel if you're watching in the UK, is now on the break in the second frame, looking to try and do the damage in there as well, because the position looks quite promising there. If you're a Trump supporter, reminder that Trump will face the Jack Lisowski, who got a walkover over Ryan Day, had to be withdrawn from the tournament. So joining the list of players, the likes of sort of Ronnie O'Sullivan, Neil Robertson, and who was the other one? Napon Sankhan had to be withdrawn from the tournament. So yeah, Trump now looking to exploit that position to his name. Stevens is now looking to exploit some of the vulnerabilities of his game and try and improve on those, as he now will be the person to break off in the frame number 2. Goes for the aggressive one. Make sure that the black is now in a good position. The cue ball control is decent. Hasn't quite landed on the cushion, so once again leaving that invitation for Xintong. And we all know the Chinese player doesn't need a second of those. And what a brilliant long shot that was from Xintong there. So could we be seeing another player from the top 10 running away with it here, as both Stevens and Hon Yu have been unable to challenge either Judd Trump or Zhao Xintong, as we have another pot here. Another look at this long pot. Really nicely cued there. Found that nice little gap between the black and the red, and landed perfectly in between the yellow, the brown and the blue to give himself an option of the 3 of those. Once again, brilliant cue action with the screw back. Lands with two options, either to the left middle or to the right, to the left corner pocket. Of course, I think he'll take the latter option just because of his, sort of laugh for playing around the black spot, which is probably the best player right now in terms of break building in and around the black spot, beating the likes of Judd Trump and Ronnie O'Sullivan. In terms of those stats, even a lot of tournaments last year, I think it was only Mark Williams that proved to be more consistent than the Chinese number one. So once again, as not a straightforward roll on the cushion here for the red. Needs to make sure he's got the angle here quite favorable to him, so just needs to add a little bit of topspin and make sure he doesn't miss the pot. And that's exactly what he's done there. So I think he just played that one with too much pace, and he got down to it a little bit too quick, because those shots are always going to be the most difficult ones and the most tricky ones, because it wasn't right on the cushion, and he hasn't played it with sort of roll the rod ball into the pocket, and just left a little invitation there for Stevens. Tough shot to take. Yeah, I just thought it was a little bit too keen from him to be sort of getting down to it so quickly. And I felt like he took his eye off the pot there a little bit. Stevens now with a chance once again. Try and do all the damage. Of course, his biggest break of the match so far being 31. Only just made the black into the pocket, but hasn't landed on any of the reds. So once again, that cannon power of Stevens not doing the damage. And it looks like it'll be just another safety shot here. And Stevens will try and exploit all the option he has. And I assume he'll just use the red on the top side of the table and put the cue ball quite close to the ball cushion area. So once again, we'll have to probably end on the break of 8. Exactly that. Sends the red closer to the pink spot and the cue ball quite close to the ball cushion. And in behind the brown, just leaving the left side of the table for Xintong to try and potentially deal with. I would assume he'll try to catch the thin edge of one of those reds and send the cue ball probably into a similar area to where he already was. He's aiming for the long pot here, Xintong, so yeah, I'm not sure he was actually trying to make that pot. Of course, maybe he had a little safety in mind, but whatever he had in mind, it hasn't worked out too well for him, as he has left it hanging over the middle pocket. Still, it's a cut that Stevens has to make sure he doesn't over or undercut there. And also, it's very important to be missing the ball colors and avoiding the kiss with any of the three of them. Just to make sure that lands perfectly in between them, to guarantee himself the position. Well, with the power and the angle of this shot, I would think it's going to be the blue. And he absolutely messed the shot up there. So he missed the position. And he missed the red as well. But got really lucky, I would say, with landing the cue ball right on the cushion there. Quite close to the black ball cushion. So I don't think he's left anything for Xintong at all, apart from a decent safety to take on. And let's see what the man from China can do here. As a little shake of the head is a sign that you'll probably have to settle for a safety. And the Welsh former world number 5 seems to have got away with it. Once again, just a safety here from Xintong. Lands yellow in between the red that he's played in the cue ball. So once again, you would assume, unless Stevens decides to play off the cushion and into the red, you'll have to go to the top, to the bottom side of the table to find a safety shot to play. Taking his time on that, and was potentially looking for if there was a pop there, but in the end focusing just on the cue ball position and doing that quite nicely there. This time Xintong has a straightforward over cross double shot potentially if he wants to take it on. Sort of send the red ball down towards the black cushion and the cue ball right in behind where it was. Didn't want to catch the brown there with the cue ball Xintong, but in the end hasn't left anything easy for Stevens here. Has got 1 or 2 long pot options, but with the cue ball going right into the bunch of reds, I think he will refuse those at this stage of the match. Does exactly that, finds a nice little safety shot, and the turn goes back to Xintong. So the first frame has been very much the attacking battle and the battle of mistakes. Whoever can make the fewer of those. But this time it is very much a safety battle, with both of the players trying to make sure they're not the ones to give the position an easy opening for their opponent. As once again Xintong finds a really good safety shot there. And Stevens needs to respond. Hasn't got the green hampering him too much at this stage. And needs to make sure he finds the angle. Got up from that shot really quickly, which is always a sign that he hasn't played it the way he wanted to. Had to make sure he missed the red that was covering the left cushion. And now left Xintong a potential pot chance here. And the Chinese player takes it in brilliant style as he landed on one of the colors. The answer is not really. He's got the brown to his name, but the cue ball once again is a bit too close to the cushion. And the transition from the top part of the table, of course, needs to land on one of the reds at the bottom side. Wasn't easy, and he's missed the brown there. So once again, the battle of errors seems to continue. And he has landed on one of the reds perfectly into the middle. So Stevens' chance here. Needs to make sure he's taking those errors from Xintong, because I don't think they'll be endless here. At some point, Xintong will just find his pace, and he's going to try and sort of stop winning the frames in one visit here. Stevens needs to make sure he goes against that. Now lands on the black ball here. Has got probably 5 or 6 reds to be playing around here, so the position looks really promising for Stevens here. Just needs to make sure he makes it count. And a good shot there from Stevens. Has to generate a lot of angle and a lot of power on the black ball. Now the question is, that concerning look on his face is something I don't really like. Has he done too much damage to himself? And has he landed just in between? He seems to be alright there, but way too close for comfort for himself. Of course, he has got a shot into the middle, to be fair, but that one would make a landing on the color just a little bit more difficult. So Stevens decides to go for the top one and go for the blue, or potentially the pink. I'm not sure if he pots into the right corner pocket there. Stevens will have a better angle than me. Once again goes for the extension on the cube. So has to reach that one a little bit further than he would have liked. But of course, with the angle he had on the red, there wasn't too much he had to do. So needs to make sure this one goes in, and it does. So it lands really nicely onto the reds there. And now surely has a frame to lose, does Matthew Stevens. Being 11 points ahead already. Still 99 points on the table, so a lot of work to do. But with the position looking the way it is at the moment, you know, with him looking to bring the pink into play now, land on the black ball as a backup potentially, which is exactly what he's done. And now we'll probably use the black ball cushion and a little bit of topspin to land the left side of the cube of the red ball there. Nicely done. This time I think he's got the angle to go either for the pink or the blue. I don't think he'll be holding on to the black ball too much here. Nicely done. And once again, the red ball is in. Has gone for the pink this time as Matthew Stevens. Now 20 points clear, looking to make that 26 if he gets the pink in. And then looking to be setting up the pace here of this frame, and hopefully getting himself back level here. 38 points on the board. Just a little reminder, Lu Honyu has managed to win the second frame, so it's 1-0 here in the Trump Honyu match, and Stevens now will be looking to make that 1-0 in this match as well. So both tables so far with nothing to separate them. Stevens looking to make that on this table as well, as now once again straight on the pink. Hasn't got any sort of cue action to do, as he just stuns the cue ball and has got a really nice red onto the left middle pocket. Still has got at least 2 reds in really easy position. Then of course, being 33 points clear, he will need one of the 4 remaining ones on the table. The first one disappears. Now has a shot selection of either the black or the pink. I think he will probably go for the black if he wants to split up the cannon, and settle for the pink if he just wants to play a straightforward shot into the middle. So just has a little look at the scoreboard to see if it's going to be enough for him to just use that red. It surely won't be. So he needs to make sure he has at least 1 more red to land on. And with that in mind, he does indeed take the black. With a lot of topspin and not a lot of power. So I thought he was going to go into the bunch. He hasn't. He's turned that down. And has lined up on the last available red. So 41 points is the gap between him and Xintong. 67 still on the table. Be 59 if he gets this red in. So it wasn't easy with sort of the angle that he's landed in wasn't perfect. Had to do a lot of work to make sure he landed on the black. He's done exactly that. And now the black and the cue ball will go into the bunch of reds. Needs to make sure he lands on at least one of them. He's done exactly that. Not a lot of power. Brilliant cue action. And it's now looking like it will be 1-0 with just 2 more shots for Matthew Stevens here to play. The man from Wales looking to do all the damage this time in 1 break, in 1 visit to the table. You know, Xintong had a chance in that brown earlier in the frame, but hasn't managed to take his chance. And the frame ball goes in there from Stevens. So a really good break, I would say. Being 61, could potentially make a century break if he gets anywhere near a clearance here. So 62 already, with 70 points scored in the entire match. Now making that 77. Has a little touch on the pink just to give himself a little bit more freedom on the reds. Checks the angle and goes down for the shot once again. So has been playing this at quite a fast pace, Matthew Stevens. Of course, in his prime, he was taking less time on the shots than some of the likes of Sean Murphy, Kyron Wilson. Was really famous for him being on the rhythm of a break. Hasn't had that for a while there, but has a little glimpses of his former form in the past. With now 78 points on the break, looking to make that 83 if the blue goes in. Hasn't had an angle to finish on the yellow as easily as he would have liked. So now has a lot of distance in between the yellow and the cue ball. Has to make sure he lands on the green perfectly to set up a potential century break, as the brown is in a difficult position. But once again, that yellow just seems to be a danger ball for Stevens, as he missed one in the first frame by quite some margin, and he's missed one once again here. So the break ends on 83, so not quite a century break. And one thing I would say about Stevens is he has missed that yellow by an awful lot of margin once again, but it is indeed 1 frame all here. And we are going into frame 3 with nothing to separate the players. You know, Xintong coming out on top in the frame number 1, with Stevens responding with a decent break of his. And now it is all square at the round of 32 here at Wuhan Open. Once again, a little reminder that it's still 1-0 between Judd Trump and Lee Hon Yu. The third frame being very much in action still. On table number 1, Aaron Hill and Karen Wilson are now already having a 1-0 draw, with Judd Trump on a break of 7 earlier on. Jimmy Robertson and Lee Pei Fan once again have a 1-0 square. And Stephen Maguire and Wang Jingbo, reminder that the winner of that pair will face either Xintong or Stevens in the next round. Maguire now leads by 2 frames to 0. And Xiao Gadun is looking to make the same scoreline in his match with Ishpreet Singh Chadha from India. So still a lot of good pairs left in this tournament. Of course, we've seen already Michael Holt, Mark Selby featuring in the match. Jamie Jones, Barry Hawkins, that was quite an interesting match to see. You know, Judd Trump was putting on a brilliant performance. We've seen already John Higgins winning 5 frames in a row against Emery today. Sort of Ding Junhui Sen Moody clash, where Ding was leading by 3 frames to 2. Still, Moody came back at him to win the last 3 frames and take the match by 5 frames to 3. So one of the favourites for the tournament, probably a couple of years ago, is out. I don't think you can sort of say who is the favourite for the tournament, even in China, with so many other Chinese players on tour. You talk about Xiao, Zhao Xintong, Xiao Godun, Lei Fan potentially. And all of a sudden, Ding is no longer the face of China in terms of snooker. Bang Jung-soo has also lost to Chip Chae-nu, the player that has made another maximum in the space of just a couple of weeks here. So you'll be hoping there won't be any more maximums here, because he already has to share the maximum prize with Xiao Godun, that has made one early in the morning here yesterday. But of course now Chip Chae-nu is eligible for the prize of 147,000, as he now made 2 maximums in 1 calendar season there. The frame 3 is almost ready to start, as we just wait for the referee to come back. Both players are already here. This time it will be Xintong's turn to go for a break. Xintong, I don't think he'll be massively fazed by the loss of the previous frame, because he hasn't done an awful lot there. He, as I said before, I think he's the type of a player that he will always go for shots that he knows he can miss, but he also knows that the percentage of those shots that he makes will make more damage to his opponent than to himself on the ones that he doesn't make into the pocket there. That's a decent break off here. Once again, not leaving any sort of opportunities here for the long shot for Stevens. Just a safety shot here with a potential potting angle to play, but decides against that. Stevens just has to make sure the cue ball misses the brown. He hasn't, and depends on the angle there from Xintong, but straight away you see probably a 1 second look there from the Chinese player, and he turns the pot down. So he just goes for the safety shot here. And a really aggressive safety shot, once again splitting up the reds heavily. Catches the brown himself there. I think this time it will be Stevens that will have to turn down a massive long pot chance. And I don't think Matthew Stevens is one of those players that will do that. Now he's lining up a long pot here. And he's got it, only just though. The red ball has rattled in the jaws of the pocket. But Stevens has managed to land on the green ball. Hasn't got the best of angles to get down to the bottom part of the table. So we'll have to consider potentially yellow or blue to make himself an easier path. Decides to go for a blue instead. Needs to make it, and then all of a sudden he's in with a real chance here. Goes for some power, and was really confident that blue was going to make it, because even before the blue was in the pocket, Stevens was well up from the table and is now looking to try and potentially be ahead in this match. Something he needs to do throughout the majority of it if he is to win it. As I mentioned, if you let Zhao Xintong run away with it, I think we could still be here in for a 5-1 win here for the Chinese player, because Stevens here on this shot on the blue has landed pretty straight, with most of the reds being sort of quite far from the pink spot, and especially the blue spot. I think he'll have to consider to go for the green there. The problem is he hasn't really got any much angle on the green as well. So probably just has to generate as much power as possible on the cue ball. So decides for the other option and decides just to stun it and roll back a little bit on it. So leaves a lot of distance between the cue ball and the red ball there. It's a difficult shot, that is, especially when the angle that Stevens has. Makes it really well there and lands really well on the black as well. So A difficult shot there for Stevens, and the one that he's put himself under pressure there. But he's made it, and now he's 20 points ahead here. For the first time, of course, after Zhao Xintong has managed to pretty much dominate the opening frame after too many of Stevens' mistakes. Needs to make sure he cuts those mistakes down, and all of a sudden, he'll be in with a chance here, Matthew Stevens. 21 points ahead. Doesn't want to be straight on this black, as he can't really be screwing back from the cushion because there's a red in the way, and with the face expression of Stevens, he does seem to be concerned about it. Might have to force at a natural angle and try and potentially go for a topspin shot. And try and go for the red on the cushion there. Yeah, you can see dead straight on that black. Needs to miss that red. Hasn't. As he got the one into the middle. And even if he has, it's a really tough shot to take on. With the position being still quite promising for Xintong. Last thing you want to be doing for Stevens is sort of giving an easy chance for your opponent. So for all the aggression that Stevens possesses, I would expect him to be going for a safety shot here. Because even if he gets this red in, there's absolutely no guarantee that he will land on the pink. So it's a risky shot to take on. Yeah, and he refuses it in the end. So after careful consideration, I think it was the right thing to do. Because, as I say, it was a difficult shot in itself to make. And landing on the colour after it, with the cue ball going straight into the bunch of reds. With no real glimmer of hope there for the Welsh player. Just a safety here, and a chance for a cross double here for Xintong. The cue ball is good. The red ball position is not really good. Needs to make sure he's got cover here, Xintong, and I think he has. So in the end, a clever shot there to play. Having sort of brown and yellow to come to your rescue. And now Stevens will have to evaluate all of his options. Because whatever he does now, he can't afford to be leaving these red visible to Xintong. Needs to make sure he's got some sort of safety in mind. May have to just roll up to one of the reds on the cushion and just take the gamble on that. Now Stevens taking more of a minute now than a shot, so this does look like he'll have to probably go for something that, if it doesn't work, Xintong will be in for the chance here. So tries to do exactly the carbon copy of the shot that Xintong has played a couple of moments ago, and needs the cover of the yellow. And I'm pretty sure he's got it because there's a little tap on the table there from Xintong, and Stevens walks away pretty happy, I think, from the table. So Xintong now needs to do it all himself. Needs to make sure he misses the jaw of the middle pocket. He has done. But once again, he's gone for the yellow to try and cover him up. And I don't think that's worked out for him this time. The problem for Stevens is that shot that Xintong just played has put black into a little bit of a tougher position than it was the shot before that. And landing on the black is going to be difficult. So may have to force a little bit of a top spin to try and potentially go for the pink. Needs to be careful he doesn't go in with the red there. So a really good pot there from Stevens. We'll have to see for a better angle if he has managed to land on the black there. And if he has, he's in with a real chance here, being 29 points clear already. Nice black as well from the cushion. And now in prime position, Matthew Stevens here to be taking this frame away from Zhao Xintong. Nice long pot from Stevens. Yeah, it was an important one. I would say it was really an important one, because if you miss it, all of a sudden Xintong has all of the position to his disposal. You know, yeah, that complimentary that we did to him, I don't think he's done him any good, because he's just missed an absolute sitter of a red. After doing all the hard work there, Stevens, he just absolutely messed himself up there. It was nowhere near that red, and he got nowhere near enough of the cutting edge for that red. As I was saying a couple of moments ago, Xintong now has a position to his name that is probably a frame winning position, no matter if you're 36, 55 points behind. Yeah, Stevens himself. Yeah, I think he's just thrown the frame here. Because I'll be really surprised if Stevens comes back to the table once here. You know, Xintong hasn't been playing well. You could say in any of those frames, but he could still be in here with a chance to win at least 2 of them. Once again, the black is in, so this will be a really quick break here from Xintong. I think being one of the quickest players on tour when it comes to break building, especially in and around the black spot. Yeah, it's like leaving a last Krispy Kreme donut to the pack of hungry wolves. It's just not going to be there forever. And Xintong is going to try and take his chance. I would say in 5 minutes time, this table will have to be re-racked for the new frame. Xintong already scoring 24 points, getting down for the next red. Looking to make that 25. Once again, in and around the black spot. He's got 6 more reds in open play, so 75 more points. The ridiculous thing is, for all the chances Stevens has had, I won't really be surprised if Xintong makes a century out of this position. You know, as long as he keeps away from those silly errors that we've seen already from both players. I wouldn't be at all surprised, but now the Q action from the black hasn't been great there, and all of a sudden he's messed himself up there as he's landed right in between the 2 reds. You'll have to wait and see if he can get in around the 2 of them. Play with a little swerve. Yeah, and he's took the shot on there. He probably should not have. And Stevens will be the happiest man in China right now because he has absolutely got away with one there. He had no choice, and he had no right to be coming back to the table in this frame. But Xintong, with probably a little bit of arrogance and just not focusing on the positional play too much, which usually he's so good at, has left Stevens with another chance here. A chance that surely the Welshman will take, being 12 points ahead already. So just needs to make sure he avoids the errors of the type that him and Xintong have been making for the last couple of minutes here. And 3 more reds will do the damage here for Matthew Stevens as another black goes in. So 20 points ahead, still 59 on the table. Looking good here for Stevens. And at this point, I would still say you would back Xintong to be the favorite for this match. But if the tendency continues and both players are just going to keep giving each other chances after chances, all of a sudden this could be a lot more interesting match than even I would have thought. I thought it was going to be close, but I thought Xintong had to be, would have had to be playing a lot worse than he was, and Stevens would have had to play an awful lot better than he managed so far. But it's looking like if he makes 2 more pots here, Stevens, he will be heading into the 4th frame as the man in front here, as the frame ball goes in. So 34 points clear now. Just needs these red and the next color to do all the damage here, Matthew Stevens. And it will be the pink once again. So 35 ahead, 35 on the table. So any color will do it nicely for him. And of course, if this pink is in, it will be 2 snookers required for Zhao Xintong. The pink does indeed go in. So after all the mess he's created for himself, Matthew Stevens is still somehow managed to win this frame. And I think the question of how has to go to Zhao Xintong. How has he managed to mess up the position he's had? Now Stevens will aim for a 50+ break here for potentially. Needs just a couple of more shots here. Just the yellow and green. And once again, he has a little pointing finger to the yellow as he misses it. So 3 times he missed the yellow already in the opening 3 frames. But so far he's managed to win 2 of those frames. And it's now Matthew Stevens that leads by 2 frames to 1 here. Nice little Nice little banter there from Stevens, just showing a little finger to the yellow. I think he's missed the yellow more than he's missed the red already. And we only had 3 frames so far. If you look at the other table, Judd Trump once again has restored his advantage of at least 1 frame of a Lu Hongyu. And he's now leading by 2 frames to 1. Kyron Wilson is now losing to Iron Hill, so surprise there. Still early days and Wilson still very much the favourite. Stephen Maguire looking to lose the first frame of the day for him, as he will now be leading by 2 frames to 1. And Xiao Gadon looking to go ahead in his match once again after Ishbridge Sinchada managed to get a frame on the board for him. Li Pei-fan is now leading Jimmy Robertson by 2 frames to 1. And Hayden Pinney is now leading the snooker shootout winner of last year, Tom Ford, by 2 frames to 1. So still we haven't had any sort of absolute whitewashes so far. As in every single match there was, every single player has won at least 1 frame to his name. And now Stevens, I think from this position, if you go back to this match, I think Stevens needs the 4th frame a lot more than Xintong needs it. Because even from 3-1 down, you could easily see Xintong winning the next 4 frames in a row if he finds his form. Of course, not if he's playing the way he's been playing in the opening 3 frames. But I just have a feeling with Stevens that you have to be sort of trying edge yourself ahead and then just try and control the gap, potentially slow the game down, potentially put your opponent into the safety battles, and all of a sudden just grind out those points in the last 2 frames that you need to win. Sort of go with a 28-point advantage, then try and build it up to 44 or something like that. And all of a sudden put some pressure on Xintong's name. As now we wait for Matthew Stevens to come back to the table. He will be him, of course, to break. Needs to make sure he doesn't leave any sort of invitation chances here for Xintong, as he has in the previous break of his. It is now already 8 o'clock here in China. Of course, reminder that the next tournament will be a qualifier for the China Grand Prix. The players have already said they're looking forward to it. Ronnie O'Sullivan, Sean Murphy and Kyron Wilson have all said one of their favourite cities to come to. As we're looking to get this tournament very much underway and get some action going here. Still no sign of Stevens at the table yet. And at the other table, it is Judd Trump with a chance once again to have a good break of his. Now scoring just 1 point, but the position being really open. Just a lot of colours, not in the prime position there. And Stevens is finally back to the table. And we're going to have the frame number 4 started here from the Welshman. Once again doing that from the right side. And going really aggressively once again. The cue ball position seems to be just about perfect. So nothing easy for Xintong here. Now Stevens is very much up and underway here because, you know, in the first frame it was a little concerning that the amount of chances he missed. I probably would say it still was really concerning in the frame number 3. But Xintong wasn't able to capitalize on that. He goes for an attempt of a shot there. The cue ball position was quite nice there, but with the reds going ricocheting amongst each other, does Stevens have a chance into the middle pocket? And if he does, it could be worrying signs from Xintong because we haven't seen anything of his brilliant break building skills, and we've seen a lot of frustration and a lot of missed chances there from the Chinese world number 7. So Stevens decides to go just for a little snooker attempt, as the invitation was there to roll up to the green. He'll now check if he's managed to do that, and with a little glimpse of frustration, the answer is probably not. So now Xintong will have a straightforward chance of safety. Transforms the cue ball onto the black cushion. Well, I say straightforward. Has he left Stevens with a chance here? Does the cue ball pass the pink? And can Stevens have attempt number 2 here? After turning down the first one, I don't think he's going to turn this one down. He hasn't, and he also has missed it, so 2 early invitations there from Xintong, none taken from Stevens. One he just refused, and the second one he hasn't managed to get in the pocket. So Xintong now himself has a chance. And Stevens does some maintenance work on his tip. Xintong has a cut there, which makes the cue ball control an awful lot harder. Makes the cut and lands perfectly on the right side of the blue. With 3-4 reds once again in the equation. And if you're going to free any more up, you're probably going to have to try and split the bunch up from the blue. For now, just a little transition to the bottom side of the table for Zhao Xintong. The 3 reds that I mentioned are very much close to the black spot, so you should get maximum points available there. Just to make sure he doesn't do what he's done in the previous frame and mess up his positional play, which usually he's so good at. You know, being praised so many times by the likes of Mark Williams, Ronnie O'Sullivan, and even Judd Trump. The man that, of course, the battle that we're still waiting to see, Judd Trump against Zhao Xintong. The battle of generations, as some would say. And very much identical styles, I would say. The brilliant cue action from both. Trump entering his prime, many believe. Xintong is still trying to get himself back on form after missing 2 years of professional snooker. Rolling onto the scene quite nicely with a World Championship win. Last season, we'll be looking to make it a couple of more ranking events wins here at WST Tour. So far, 30 points scored here from Xintong, and no sort of positional play missed, as now he's got a chance to make some adjustments to the cluster of the reds, but had to sacrifice a little bit of position on the black, and I don't think he's got anything out of it, because the 2 reds he has developed and are being blocked by the bunch of the reds and the pink respectively, so not too sure what he's going to try and land here as he goes for the top spin shot on the black. And yeah, really nicely done. So obviously he was aiming for something, just not too many of those left for him. 38 points on the board already, so building up some sort of a gap here and looking to make once again a win of the frame in one visit here, Zhao Xintong. This time he goes for the blue, so a chance here to go into the reds heavily. Of course, the problem here for Xintong is the pink being quite far away and blocking the potential angle of the split here. So if you're going to try and do the split, you have to do it from the black ball cushion. Exactly what he's done. He's gone for the 2 cushion cannon there. He actually managed to land in the reds quite nicely, but the question for him is, has he got anything easy? I think the answer is no, so you'll have to go for a rest shot, which still you would expect him to make, but it makes it that just a little bit more complicated here for Xintong. Gets over the line though, so 45 points already. Looking to make his first break of 50 plus in this match. Does exactly that, 52 points scored here. Still 91 on the table, so potential 1-4-3 possible. But in terms of the frame winning chances, of course, he needs at least 3 more reds to do the damage to Stevens. This is more like Zhao Xintong that we know. Of course, if he can't do the damage in this frame in one visit, Stevens will have to look back at it and say, well, I haven't really done anything wrong in this frame, and he was just so good. And you have to accept that there is going to be frames from either player that you're going to have a break-off, you're going to have a couple of decent safety chances. And, you know, that mistake, of course, from Stevens, I say he hasn't done a lot wrong. He still has had a missed opportunity into the middle pocket. Left a chance for Xintong, who's now has a frame ball to his name. And a little hesitation gives me a sign that he hasn't landed on that frame ball as well as he would have liked. So might have to go for a plan B, which he doesn't really have here, Xintong. So let's see what exactly is bothering him. I'm not too sure because he still went for the easiest of the reds. Now, maybe he wasn't just too confident on which color to land. In the end, he's landed quite in the middle of them, going for the blue now, but the frame is 1 barring snookers. It just needs blue to make sure Stevens won't be coming back to the table. The blue is in, so a really good break there at 74 so far from Xintong. Of course, we're yet to see the first century break, after Stevens was the man who got close of the two to it in the last couple of frames, having a break of 83. Xintong will equal that with the next shot of the red. It's currently on 82. Needs 5 more pots, 6 more pots I should say, to make it a century break. With 83 on the board now. 2 more blacks and 2 more reds here needed to be on the century ball there. As he scores 90 points here. So 3 shots away from the century. So a lot better here from Xintong. I would say the position has been favorable to him. But so it was in the previous frame. And he wasn't able to do the damage. Little concern of the look of the face there for the century break, as he seems to have landed pretty straight on the black. So all the angle to generate here manually for himself. There's 98 points scored, so he needs a red and a color here. I would assume it's going to be the black. As he now goes for a really good shot there. An awful lot of Q action. In the end, landing perfectly on the black. So a shot for a century here. The first one of the match. And he's got it. Zhao Xintong, who's the first one to have a century on the scoreboard. And yeah, that will boost him some confidence, which I'm pretty sure he doesn't lack any already. 107 points on the board. Could make it 130, something like that here. As he goes for the brown. So 111 scored already. Can make that 138 break. Nice century. Yeah, really high scoring one. Wouldn't be the highest of the break with some of the maximums already. But still, you know, just not giving your opponent any table time and having it all yourself is always a nice thing in snooker, especially in a tight match, which this one so far has looked like the one. So 120 on the board. Making that 125 for the blue. 131 with the pink, and now the black for the 138 total clearance here. Rattles it in, the cue ball stays out. A really good break, I would say, from Zhao Xintong, and a really good way to end the first session here, the first mini session. And we will be back in action after a 15 minutes break here, as the first mini session, 15 minutes interval, is going to be here. Matthew Stevens 2, Zhao Xintong 2, with all to play for in the upcoming frames. And we're back once again for the session number 2. The mini session break is now over. Xintong had a decent break off now. And now it's Matthew Stevens that has to do all again. As the latest frame has found him very much spending the majority of the time in his chair there. Needs to make sure he gets himself onto the rhythm and in with a chance of a decent break off. Once again, that safety shot won't do him or Xintong any of the favors because the black is now in amongst the reds and probably isn't going to be potable for the next couple of shots. So with the pink being out of the equation, it is very much blue and the bold colors if you are talking about the break building. Needs to make sure Xintong to get a good safety here, aiming in for the brown. And a really good speed and accuracy there from Xintong. Lands up really in behind the brown in terms of the position of the cue ball. Didn't really have the perfect pace in the end to just roll up to that brown as good as he would have liked. But only leaves a cross double chance here for Stevens. Once again, not freeing up the black there, but the cue ball positioning from Stevens was really nice there. So once again, as we've seen throughout the majority of the frames, we're now back to the safety battles. And usually the winner of those will have a strong chance in the frame. That has been the case throughout the match already. Xintong once again setting up the pace of those safeties and having Stevens on the receiving end of it throughout the majority of the time. And here once again the cue ball is quite close to the cushion there. And Stevens has got a long pot once again, but a meaningless one in terms of landing for the colours. So no wonder he refuses it and goes for another cross double. Needs to make sure he avoids a double kiss here. He didn't. And he got away with it there, I would say. And the cue ball has travelled an awful lot more distance than Stevens would have liked it to. Had to avoid the double kiss and actually probably ended up the best he could have there, Stevens. Because he hasn't left anything for Xintong. Himself now tries to free up the pink at least. With the black being surrounded by the reds pretty much in any sort of pocket that he would normally go to. Now Stevens needs a response to find here, but a decent safety of his. Taking his time on the shot, needs to find the thin edge of one of the reds here, and it's not going to be easy for Stevens because that will make cue ball travel an awful lot of distance. Needs to make sure he just uses perfectly to land just behind the bulk line, preferably behind one of the ball colors and on the cushion for safety, but that will be a bonus for the shot. As the good news is the black is now very much freed up, and probably another good news for Stevens is he hasn't really given anything to Xintong here. So a decent safety once again. Haven't seen too many safety errors here from either player. I mean, Stevens had a couple in frame number 2, but apart from that, Xintong has been solid himself in that regard. As once again a real good safety, just leaves one ball for Stevens to work with, and potentially will consider an option of rolling up to it. This was against that, so it'll just be a thin edge of the red ball as well. Got that one a little bit too thick. The cue ball needs to travel, needs to run for Stevens, and I don't think he has. I think he's left a long pot chance here for Zhao Xintong. Checking himself there, Stevens. And yeah, that face says it all there. He clearly left it on for Zhao Xintong. It's a difficult one, but it's the one where the cue ball is always going to go towards the blue and the ball colors, which makes it appealing for Xintong. He refuses it. Has he seen a potential plant there? He has. He's got it. Has he got any sort of color there from the cue ball? He hasn't really, because he had to go through all the sort of reds in the world there. From the 14 left on the table, he felt like he touched 13 of them. And now has landed really awkwardly on the blue. Still a shot he can take on with one of the reds being really close to the left corner pocket. And probably has to take it on because it'll be really difficult for him to find any sort of safety to it. He has to get on, and he's got it as well. So a shot there from Xintong from the position that looked like it was a little bit pointless to try and attack something. He's found a shot there, the Chinese player. Now needs another good positional shot here, as the cut is not necessarily the hardest. The positional shot is, and there you go, a hand of apology will go up because the cannon from the Reds couldn't have gone any more in favor of Zhao Xintong. Now has 7 points to his name on the current break, and we'll be looking to make that once again an awful lot more here. Try to take the pink spot. Couldn't at that time because I think he would have liked the pink to go on the black spot. So have to do that again at some point. So 14 points scored. Once again on the pink. I think if you look at the red's position, I think at least 8 of them are in perfect position. It's just all about getting the black spot free from any sort of trouble, because the blue is very much playable. The pink certainly is as well. After that lucky cannon, as I would describe it, the ball colors are still at disposal of Xintong. So it's just the black. There's potentially an issue, and if Xintong is happy to be playing in and around the pink and blue, he could even leave without it. So 20 points scored already. Looking to make that 27 here, as he doesn't land perfectly on the pink here. So a little bit of an angle into the middle pocket. Has got a couple of reserve shots, I would say, to get him out of trouble there, as the pink is comfortably in. And he's done well to not put any sort of distance. Ronnie versus. He was supposed to be against Alan Taylor in the qualifying yesterday, but he and Robertson both withdrew from the tournament. So Ronnie, Robertson, Sankam, and Zhao Yolong won't be featuring in the tournament, as all of them have withdrawn from it. I think it was always going to happen, especially if you talk about Ronnie's commitment to play in the China World Grand Prix next week qualifiers, because he says it's his favorite city to go to. I think he was always going to miss this one after having such a successful campaign in Saudi Arabian Masters, just coming 1 frame short against Neil Robertson. Xintong here building up a break and a good cushion to himself. 41 points already, 99 on the table. So more than halfway there, and 25, 26 more points. And he will be ahead once again in this match by at least a frame. Pink is comfortably once again, so no real issues here for Xintong, no real issues for him to face, no real problems. Just those tiny little errors in the positional play that he has to avoid. That he already made the mess a couple of times in the previous frames. So far, everything nice and tidy in this frame. Looking to make it another 50 plus break. Does that with the pink disappearing into the pocket. So 55 points already, 83 on the table. Needs to take out 2 more reds out of the equation, and that will be a frame to him. Nice work, Sasha. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's been a really good match so far. I mean, I don't regret once of changing the Trump Honyu match for this, because that one, Trump is now only 1 frame away from victory. And here, it's still anyone's game. You know, Xintong will be a massive favorite, of course, being higher ranking by far. And also now having, in a couple of shots time, you would expect him having 1 more frame on the board. With 63 points ahead now, 67 on the table. So we'll make that 69. And he does that. 69 points here for Zhao Xintong. And barring snookers, he has won the frame number 5, so a perfect start for him after a 15-minute session break. And 1 less frame here for us to witness, as we already would have seen 5 out of potential 9. of course, a little reminder, it is best of 9 and first to 5 here in the first round of the Wuhan Open. Will be the case at least until the quarterfinal stages here in China. Zhao is always a joy to watch. Yeah, I think he is. Just his style of play, when he's on it, he's always going to be one of those players that you sort of say, he's the next Trump, he's the next Ronnie O'Sullivan. Especially from the times that he takes on these shots, you know, he gets down to it really quickly. He knows which shot to play. He knows he doesn't have to take a lot of time in it, and he knows which is the next color to land, what is the next position for him to do, what's the best angle, is it going to be 57, is it going to be 59? All those aspects of his game have really been on top for the last couple of ranking events. And now, of course, we'll be looking to make another one count for him and become the world champion of. It could be Judd or more than Judd, but not Ronnie. I think it will always be impossible for someone to be the next Ronnie, just because you have to think about what Ronnie has done, and it took him, what, 35 years. He turned pro in 1990. So 35 years and running for Ronnie in terms of a professional career, as Xintong seems to be playing all the good shots here, just 2 more for the century. And to think that Xintong or anyone will have to do that for sort of next 30 years, it's all right when you win the world championship once, but it's really different to win it 3-4 times. Not even going to talk about 7 times that he and Hendry has done it, but Zhao Xintong here, really good shots being played by him, and now 105 on the break, could make it 132 in total as the yellow disappears. So a straightforward ending here, and a joy to watch. As Ahmad says there, an absolute pleasure to watch. No matter if you are from China or from any part of the world, you know, Zhao Xintong could be the next generation of snooker, with the likes of Mark Williams, John Higgins, Ronnie O'Sullivan's careers at some point inevitably coming to an end. Zhao is playing quite well today. Yeah, I think he had a couple of those errors that sort of Stevens was able to punish him for, but as I say, he should have been going into the break with being 3 frames, leading with 3 frames to 1, Stevens. He hasn't done that, and all of a sudden, you know, he hasn't done anything wrong here, Stevens. He just left a really good blunt introduction for Xintong, and yeah, he's made him play for it. Xiao will make 100 centuries this season if he plays all 100%. 100% he will. His play, if Robertson, all I'm saying to you, no disrespect to Neil Robertson, but if Robertson can do 100 centuries in a season, and Robertson is a sort of reserve player when it comes to, when he plays against the likes of top 50, top 32, he will be trying to go for every single chance. But when he's playing against the top guys, he will always try and sort of stay in the safety game because he's quite good at it. When you think about Zhao Xintong, he ain't gonna care if he plays Ronnie O'Sullivan, Mark Williams. We already seen that last season. He will just say, you know what, you play your game, you can try and do as much safeties as you like. I'm gonna go for 90% of the chances that I get. I know I'll pot 75% of them, and the rest of 25, I can just deal with that and sort of say it's damage limitation from my side. But certainly so far in his career, it has been working pretty nicely for him. Needs a little more ranking events to his name, I would say. Robertson always plays tactical in front of... Yeah, I was going to say that. The amount of time Robertson... Him and John Higgins are the top 2 players. Well, obviously Mark Selby, but he plays tactical against everyone. But when you talk about facing the top 16, not even top 8, when you think about Neil Robertson, when you think about that Saudi Arabian Masters when he was playing against Selby, when he was playing against Carter, he knew, especially against Carter, because Selby doesn't really mind to be in that safety battles. When he was playing against Carter, he knew that Carter likes to be on the front foot. He knew that Carter wants to be aggressive. And he's just trying to take that out of the game and make Carter sort of go the route that Robertson wanted to take. And in the end, winning that match 6-4, it was a really good match to watch, I would say. But yeah, Robertson and Higgins, surprisingly for Higgins, because from the talent that he is, being a 4-time world champ, being a multiple world champion is John Higgins. I always thought, and I know a couple of other players have mentioned that as well, I always thought he is a little bit too, sort of, too passive, I would say, in a good way, but also sometimes in a bad way. He's always too conservative, and he has those chances, John Higgins, all the time. Whether you see it in deciders or you see it in random sort of frames and matches, when he has those 50-50 chances, 90% of the time he'll turn them down. Especially if you talk about a top 8 player, he'll turn those chances down. And the amount of times I've seen Mark Williams and Ronnie O'Sullivan, the sort of class of '92, say you should be going for those. And John, if he was going for sort of those shots a lot more in his career, he would have achieved so much more. But I suppose it's just a style of player he is, and certainly worked out in his career still very much in his favour. I wasn't sure that Robertson could win a single match in Saudi, but anything is possible. Um, yeah, but I mean, he got to the final. I wasn't sure that Robertson could win a single match in Saudi, but anything's possible. So you didn't think he was going to get through last 32, Robertson? I mean, let's have a look at the matches he's played. I wasn't. I was probably would say that he was going to get to a quarter final with me. So his first match was against Ben Wallace, and he won that one 5-2 easily. Would expect him to win that. Selby against Robertson, it's always an interesting one. Because with Robertson taking his time on the safety play, the players are coming back, by the way, for frame number 6 here. Robertson always taking his chances on the safety side of play when he plays against the top 16, top 10, top 8. It was always going to be a really tight match, and I actually anticipated the decider there. But if you take a little bit closer look there in the scoreboard, Selby was actually trailing throughout the entire match. He was ahead once. So Robertson was leading by 3 frames to 1. Selby managed to win 3 frames in a row, got it to 3-4, and then Robertson won 3 frames in a row himself and won that match. So it was all about momentum there. And Robertson was able to get the better of Selby, who so far, Stevens has a decent break-off here. Starts the frame number 6 underway. And the cue ball is nicely quite close to the cushion. The black ball is blocked by the red. Selby hasn't had a brilliant start to the tournament so far. Zhao, Ronnie, Judd were the great contenders. Yeah, if you talk about sort of semi-finals, if you consider that none of those would have been knocked out by either of them. If you talk about Kyron, Ronnie, Judd, well, Kyron and Ronnie could not have been in the semi-finals, all of them, because of course they had to face each other in the quarterfinals. But I get what you mean. The sort of the most informed people, and with Ronnie and Judd being the sort of guys that you're always going to have your votes for. I get what you mean there. But in the end, we had Elliot Slesser, Neil Robertson, Chris Wakelin, and Ronnie O'Sullivan. And we had really great quarterfinals. We had decent semi-finals. I wouldn't say they were brilliant. I think Wakelin did about as much as he could against O'Sullivan. I think Slesser has played an absolute shocker against Robertson. And then we obviously witnessed a brilliant final between Robertson and O'Sullivan there, with the first one winning it by 10 frames to 9. Brilliant encounter there, and a brilliant safety here from Zhao Xintong. It's now Will Stevens, Matthew Stevens, I keep calling him Will Stevens. Matthew Stevens has to find an answer to it with a safety play. As, by the way, talk about Kyron Wilson, he's currently losing by 4 frames to 1 to the Irish world number 56, Aaron Hill. So, could we be here for another surprise result here? We already had a couple with, you know, the likes of Sean Murphy dispatching Jordan Brown. I actually thought it was going to be so much closer of a match that was, but Murphy just ran away with it in the end, 5-0. Wafaye beat Ben Mertens in another match that I actually thought Wafaye was going to lose. Ding Junhui losing to Stan Moody after a little bit of a controversial call in there. I actually didn't think it was that controversial. I know that the crowd were really up against it, and Ding thought it was a bit unsporting, but the game's the game in the end of the day, and I don't think the player was at fault for it. Yeah, Mark Allen, of course, is another player that we haven't spoken a lot about, but he's through to the last 32. We'll see that. I'm taking a little nap. See you guys. Love you. Thank you very much, Ahmad. I appreciate the effort and appreciate the support. Lovely stuff there. Lovely message. I think Matthew Stevens will be taking a little nap here because He's been taking his time on the shot, more than 90 seconds already. And certainly is a sign that it's a hard shot for him to find an escape from. As in the end he goes for a cushion escape, so it'll be hard to do that. We'll have to judge the pace perfectly of the cue ball with so many reds to potentially leave on. Goes for the lowest of them all and has just underrun it there. So the line was pretty good. Trajectory was quite nice there. I think Xintong will just check that there's nothing easy for him and give the position back to his opponent. So once again taking his time there, Xintong. And he actually decides to go for a shot in the green pocket. And what a shot that is. For all the time in the world and for all the money in the world, I was actually thinking that he was going to leave Stevens with, put him back there. And a smile there from Stevens. He clearly didn't think he was going to attempt that himself, Stevens. But all of a sudden, after, what was going to be a little shot to aim at, just to judge the force perfectly, it's always better to underrun it than overrun it when you're trying to escape from a snooker. Well, it was enough invitation for Xintong to take that red into the green pocket, and now in with a chance to have a 4-2 lead potentially, winning 3 frames on the bounce here. Early days still in the frame number 2. In the frame number 6, I should say, not frame number 2. Now referee will check if the black ball can go in his spot, so once again a little delay there. As Xintong goes back to his chair. So clearly no real panic in the eyes of a Chinese player. Just taking his time. Making sure he's got everything in his mind ready for the next couple of shots at least. As the red disappears into the pocket nicely on the pink there. And once again the position is set up perfectly for the break building, especially for the player like Xintong. It's looking like he will be the person to catch here in the coming rounds, with Trump edging closer to the round of 32 spot. You have to say, haven't seen too much of Karen Wilson. I know he's losing 4-1 right now, but Judd Trump and he's actually Aaron Hill is on a break now, so this could end a lot worse than we expected it to. Judd Trump is now on a break himself, so looking to end that frame in his favour. As for now, Xintong is now looking to have a decent break of his own, have at least 50 plus points on board, and then just try and run the frame down if he has to, or potentially finish it all in one visit to the table. But yeah, Stephen Maguire loses third frame in a row to Wang Xingbo there. And reminder that the winner of that pair will play the winner of Zhao Xintong and Matthew Stevens, the match that we're watching right now. Xintong has a little shot with the rest here to play. Oh, hasn't got that one too well. Sacrificed a lot of angle just to land perfectly on the pink. The red has barely dropped in, but in the end, all good for the world number 7. A lot of power on that pink and a lot of trust in himself, because if you've played snooker before, you know those shots aren't easy, and the pink is more than capable to bounce back out of that pocket. All good here for Xiao though. He's got a couple of reds that you can choose from. None of them are super easy. It's now nicely done there from Xintong, but landing the wrong side of the blue, I would say it's probably not as bad as you would think at this moment in time, because he's got a couple of reds that he can just roll up from the blue and try and play from. Almost missed that one. Yeah, I know. Exactly, yeah. Missed your chat there. Wasn't sure which one you were talking about. Yeah, was quite close there. And once again, taking all the angle he has on the blue, taking all the risks in the world, I would say. I'm not sure if you meant that blue as well, because it was really close to missing the red before that, and now the blue, so using all of the pockets width there. Xintong, in the end, all hope is less than done now for Matthew Stevens, as Xintong remains in prime position as he sorts his positional play out. As a pink into the middle pocket. Once again, cashes the jaw. I was going to say he's in prime position, but just not playing perfectly there. He's had at least 3 of the last 5 shots that he could have easily missed had he played that with a little bit more force than either of them. He needs to steady the ship here a little bit and get himself back in the prime position. Of course, I think that will be influenced that he's not in and around the black spot, which he's usually so good at. So I had to find alternative routes there in terms of his break building play. But still, 46 points on the board, 42 of those from the break and 4, of course, from the foul that Stevens had given him. So 48 points, once again looking to make it another 50-plus break here for Zhao Xintong. With 91 points available still on the table, looking to make that 83 with the next red disappearing into the pocket. Hasn't got too much damage to do here in this frame to make sure Stevens won't be coming back to the table until at least frame number 7. Once again, a pink to play and a little screw back onto one of the reds into the same pocket as the pink, the bottom right pocket. 59 points on the board now, 83 on the table. So once again, 2 more reds and the damage will be Xintong's here in the frame, which of course would mean that he will win 3 frames on the bounce here. And a really good shot there from the red. It wasn't easy, that the angle was against him. Sort of getting on the color would have been difficult because he had to judge it of a bounce from a red. So Xintong making sure he doesn't leave any more invitation for Stevens, which he has left a lot of in the opening 4 frames. Hasn't done that since the break, and now has 2 more shots for the win in this frame. And the pink is going to be his frame ball here. So 67 ahead, 67 on the table. Had that situation quite a few times already today. And let's see what his response to that is going to be, because 73 points, and he certainly has won this frame. So brilliant stuff here from Zhao Xintong, you have to say. You know, whether you admire the guy or you support someone else, the way he does his break building and the way he's in and around the colors and the reds in terms of positional play is pretty much unmatchable in the current rate. Once again, 80 points scored, of course 76 on the break. So can't quite make it a century there, as I think I've complimented there a bit too much. And in the end, it will be the end of a break and the end of a frame there. So indeed, the damage is done from the first time of asking from Zhao Xintong. And well, we're here for potentially a last frame in this round of 32. First round of the main event at Wuhan Open after the qualifying has been completed yesterday. Zhao Xintong is now only 1 frame away from booking his place into the next round. While we have a break in play here, we have a look at how the other players are doing. So Karen Wilson has put himself back in the equation with a break of 47. He's looking to make another frame on the board to his name and reduce the gap deficit to 4-2, not in his favour. Tom Ford is now just a couple of pots away from booking his place in the round of 16. And once again, Matthew Stevens, Zhao Xintong is the match we're watching right now. Xintong leading 4 frames to 2. Lee Hon-yu is hanging on just about in the match against Judd Trump. Trump there is leading by 23 points in what looks to be the last frame of the match there. Li Beifan leads Jimmy Robertson 3 frames to 2. And Zhao Gadot has control of the match over Ishpreet Singh Chadha, the only Indian player on tour there. So some good stuff and some good snooker here played already. We've seen 2 maximums already. Could have seen 3, as I think it's the 4th time I mentioned already. If you've missed it, Zhao Xintong could have had a maximum yesterday in the qualifier match of his. but missed the last pink, so was just 2 pots away from the maximum. Came back with a smile to his face, but as I said many times before, I think he would have been absolutely dying himself. But the two players that have actually made the maximum, one from China, one from Thailand. Xiao was the first one, and Zhao responded with his 147 in the Wuhan Open campaign already here. So once again, just keeping an eye on the Iron Hill Kyron Wilson match, as Wilson's got 12 points ahead there, and now is of course trailing by 3 frames and hasn't got this one under his belt yet. You can see TNT just showing the glimpses of that table right now on table 3. Wilson's looking for a safety shot on the yellow, so you've got 6 colors, all of them on the spot apart from the yellow. And now we're back to action in our match. Zhao Xintong looking to make that the last frame of the match, with him hoping to secure a 5-2 win here and win 4 frames on the bounce. To do that, he just needs 1 more to his name, and we'll be back tomorrow for more action with Zhao Xintong potentially featuring, depends on the TNT schedule and the broadcasting position they have. Good breakoff here from Zhao Xintong. Stevens has got a couple of options of sort of do or die shots, and he's gone for one of them. I mean, you probably at this point of the match, you may as well do that. Haven't got too much to lose, and well, every shot for Stevens now is potentially his last shot into the match. As you know, I don't really want to say he has crumbled in the match, but I actually am probably going to say that, because no matter how many Zhao Xintong has won on the bounce and how many good breaks he's had, at least 2 of those breaks have been set up by bad mistakes from Stevens. Now it's once again Xintong at the table and Xintong at the break. So having a break of 6 already, has got 2 more reds that are pretty free in the position, but the first one wasn't easy and was a middle range shot, and Xintong hasn't had too much luck with those ones. Has to miss that one and has to settle for just 6 points on the board. The turn goes to Matthew Stevens now. Hasn't got anything for a chance to have a pot, so just a safety and the cue ball. Wild miss from Stevens. Yeah, I think he's just... Sorry, I saw that one a little bit late, but sort of, he's just probably just thinking to himself, if I lose this match, which I probably am at this point, I may as well just give my best and go for every single chance I have, because let's be real here. If Zhao Xintong continues to play at least with 50% of the way he has been for the last 3 frames, no matter how well Stevens is playing, he's going to give away chances, and he just has to start taking off his ones, but I think that'll be a little bit too late. As this time it's a wild miss from Xintong, and it could be quite costly one, because he's missed that one by so much that Stevens now has a chance to be right in this frame. Has to bridge over the reds. The red is in there, as he was over the pocket already, so this time it's Stevens that has 2 or 3 reds in the open play after already potting one of them. So depends if you can generate any sort of angle on one of those reds. Avoids the cannon there, which was keen. And now needs to make this one count. And you know, one thing that Stevens hasn't been able to do enough of course, he had that one frame where he had a break of 83, is win those frames in one visit to the table. And it's something that, if he is to challenge Zhao Xintong for the next 3 frames, he's going to start doing more of. Once again, he's gone for that do or die shot, and he had a little backup in terms of the red. Try and potentially play for. Referee will now check if it's a touch and ball. So, don't think he'll impact Stevens massively there. So, just has to be a little bit awkward there, a little positioning there. Awkward positioning there, I should say, and Stevens has to bridge over the reds to get to that one, has to even get one foot on the table. Doesn't want to be using the rest because that will make any sort of queuing pretty much impossible from that perspective. Referee has a quite a promising look there. And I think the cue ball in the end got away from Stevens. He's got the red in, but left himself with a really difficult black with a lot of distance between the cue ball and the black ball. And the angle not favoring Stevens at all. Really easy to catch the cushion on one of those shots. And it's exactly what Stevens has done. Yeah, I don't think he's up for it, I'll be honest with you. I think the reaction of him, he was like, he got down to hit that shot way too quickly, and he should have avoided that kiss anyway in the first place. Oof, yeah, you missed the black off them, not quite off the spot, but still in that position. I just didn't really like his body language there, and I think it'll be the last time that we'll see Matthew Stevens today. Might have lost him this match. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think this is the last time we've seen Matthew Stevens in this match. Because the position that Xintong has, with his ability to develop the reds nicely, I think it certainly looks like it will be the end of the Welshman Matthew Stevens here. As Xintong straight away in with a chance. Hasn't landed perfectly here on either the blue or the yellow. Might actually have to go for the bunch with the cannon a lot earlier than he would have liked, unless he settles for yellow or brown. Problem with yellow though is hasn't got too much angle on that either, so for me it's the brown or the blue, neither of them being easy to pot there. So takes the blue in the end, probably the right choice if you ask me, but still a very difficult pot and hard to control the cue ball. He's done both of those axe splits really good, really well I should say. The blue is in, and Xintong is now ahead in this frame once again. Has to bridge over a couple of reds, making this next shot tricky. And he's missed it, so you said he might have lost in this match. I said we won't see Stevens back to the table. Well, we will now, because Xintong has missed that red. He can afford to give himself a smile after that. He knows he probably won't be punished with a match loss to it, but gives Stevens a chance here, but not a straightforward chance, because remember, Xintong was aiming to land on the color. He wasn't aiming to land on the red there, and he hasn't really left anything easy there for Stevens. So has to find a good shot here, or potentially even a safety. I think he's probably going to take that shot along the cushion on here, Stevens. There's a little look there to the stand as if to ask, should I do this? And I think the answer is yes, you should, because you haven't really got a lot of options to stay in this match. You're not sort of taking those chances on, and if you go out of it, you may as well go out with a bang. What a bang that was, as it's a brilliant pot there from Stevens. And now with the black ball being really freaked up, this could be a frame-winning chance for Stevens. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here so far though, because we've seen a lot of those missed by either player. Xintong being the latest one of the two, even in this current frame. But now Stevens, of course, hasn't got that cushion of a couple of frames. He needs to make sure he performs in every one of those remaining 3 frames to have a chance to get himself to the last 16. There's a couple of easy reds to try and land on. Still needs to be absolutely perfect with his cue action, his potting success, and any other aspects of the game that you can think of. He's back ahead as well. Matthew Stevens here has a lot of options to his name. Has got a red into the right middle. Has got a red into the right corner as well. And now 34 points on the board for Stevens. Xintong has 20 to his name, so already ahead by 14, making that 24 as the black disappears into the pocket. So 21 ahead, 75 on the table. Don't think it'll take too long for Stevens to be closing up on a frame ball, with another red disappearing into the pocket. 4 of the 5 reds that are left on the table are in brilliant position, all 4 of them aiming towards the right pocket. So Stevens went for a screw back shot that have to say I was really surprised with, because that made him land on, that made landing on either of the reds really difficult there, and now has to come back with a decent rest shot. Hasn't been too good of a player in rest in recent weeks, Stevens. I think his rest pot success is around 55%, which is not great if you're a professional. You'll be looking to be increasing that for a couple of percentage there. Nicely done. Lands on the black well on the right side as well. So a break of 33 here and a lead of 30 will mean that the next couple of reds, once they disappear, it should be a frame 1 here for Stevens. And Xintong will have his first chance to win this match disappear off into the distance. Of course, with the scoreline being 4-2 at the moment, potentially being 4-3, you still would expect him to have at least 1, maybe 2 more chances to close off this match against Matthew Stevens. Now, Stevens has 58 points. Going for the black and the screw back. Always hard to make those shots stick because you can't really control the cue ball perfectly, and you need to make sure you cue that one absolutely into the heart of the pocket. There you go. He's finding his space now, Stevens, as he's playing those shots with barely a couple of seconds in between them. So it's a good sign before the frame number 8, as he certainly won this one now after a mistake from Zhao Xintong. You know, I thought we were not going to see any more Stevens in this match, but we're certainly going to see some of it now. Nicely done. Yeah, I think he had to do that. I think the position was always going to be really good for him to try and take advantage of. But on the other hand, he hasn't been able to do that throughout all of today's matches. Once again, probably had a... Did he have a chance of century? No, he didn't. He could have had his highest break of the match if he had a total clearance. No chance of a century and a missed black there. So, end of breakoff for Matthew Stevens as he takes another bathroom break. And he's now Zhao Xintong leading by 4 frames to 3. Stevens still very much back in this match. Karen Wilson has won the frame number 6 in his match against Aaron Hill. The Irishman is still only 1 frame away from the round of 16 spot. Xiao Gudun is now going to be leading 3-2 after Ishpri Singh Chadha had a really wonderful break there. Stephen Maguire has leveled things up against Wang Jingbo with 3 frames all. And Li Fan now has a battle in frame number 6 against Jimmy Robertson. 25 points each, with Bei Fan leading by 3 frames to 2. So, Trump, reminder, if you have been wondering, Trump has managed to get over the line against Lu Hongyu. And same scoreline as he had yesterday against Farah Hajib, it being 5-1. Trump has lost the 2nd frame and then has managed to win 4 frames on the bounce. So he's through to the last 16 as well, where he will face Jack Lisowski there. So certainly a match that I think plenty of people will be looking forward to. You know, those two practicing against each other multiple times during the last couple of years. And just having a really nice relationship between each other in the sporting terms. So it will be interesting to see how that match will go. Of course, Lisowski having a decent head-to-head against Trump. And yeah, I think that will be an interesting match tomorrow. Still waiting to see who is going to face Chang Handa there, as a couple of pairings are already completed there. I'll just guide you through those. Of course, the winner of this pair will play either Wang Jingbo or Stephen Maguire. Another pair is Jackson Page against Si Jiahui. Really good attacking match that's going to be. Mark Allen against Hussein Vafai. The 2 players out of form, I would describe them. Chip Chayonu will face Scott Donaldson in a round of 32 as well. Yoon Soo Jun against John Higgins. That will be an interesting match to see, as both are being really attacking, one being really young and one being even younger if you're John Higgins. Very much the rookie of the sport there. Ryan Evans, after having a walkover win against Neil Robertson, will face the snooker shootout winner Tom Ford, the man that has had a decent start to this campaign in 2025 after going quite long there and quite far in the Championship League. Sean Murphy, after a dominant win of Jordan Brown, will face Gary Wilson, who himself had a really good win of 5-0 each against Liu Hao Tiang there. So Chomplik against Lisovki, I mentioned that one. Shang Bin and Zhang Angda there, all Chinese round of 32. Mark Selby against David Gilbert, all English round of 32. Mark Williams, Joe O'Connor, that'll be another really interesting match there. Joe Yulun against Dan Moody. Jack Jones against Barry Hawkins after beating another Jones. He's got one more to face, Hawkins, before he can get to either Joe or Moody in the last 16. Matthew Selt is going to play against Marco Fu. And now David Grace is waiting for the final player to complete the draw of Xiao Gudun against Ishpreet Singh Chadha. And now we are ready to get frame number 8 started with Matthew Stevens to break off. After I would have thought he was out of this match, and I think at some point he would have had those thoughts as well. He was able to come back when he counted and produce a stunning break of 76, which was able to do all the damage in that particular frame. And now Zhao Xintong will have to take his time and his chances on those long pots. But once again, as I say that, he takes another one quite recklessly, I would describe it, and leaves a cut into the middle for Matthew Stevens just hang in there. I do have to say, I would have thought after Stevens was able to clinch that break, Xintong will be just a little bit more careful with those little shots of him, you know, reckless long pots there. A chance for Stevens. Yeah, I'm surprised that Xintong was able to like sort of consider that long pot after losing the previous frame, and it's 4-3 now. I know it's a little bit of a guess shot here in terms of getting on the colour here from Stevens, as you can see with the power he's played. Don't think he landed on anything apart from maybe the green, which you can't really get onto the red from. So yeah, not a lot of damage he can do from here, but still concerning signs, I would say, if you're a Zhao Xintong fan, because you always know he's going to be taking those chances and you can't refuse them because just the style of a player he is. But at least taking, you know, 3 out of 4 of those and not taking all of them would have been nice to see. But this time it's only 1 point that Stevens can score, so I'll say he got away with it there, Xintong. And Stevens probably not got underway with it, because even though the angle was always against him on that cut, especially with getting on the next colour, still you would expect him to do an awful lot better there. This time Xintong goes for a safety shot, and it's a safety shot that's looking really good there. Split up the cue ball and the red nicely. Turn goes to Stevens once again. And a nice shot there. The cue ball travels back into the bulk area. And Stevens is unhappy with the pace he found on that cue ball and the bounce of the cushion, I think. Don't think that will have a massive difference in this particular shot, because Xintong here hasn't got anything but a safety. With potential pot in mind, once again, the cue ball travels an awful lot of distance to get itself back into the bulk area. Nicely done there from the Chinese player. The Welshman has to find the response himself now. Little hesitation there. I think Stevens is one of those players that tries to be aggressive and don't take too many seconds between the shots when he's on a break. But when you talk about his safety aspect of the game, he doesn't mind being the one that, you know, takes his time on the safety shots, just as long as he manages to get the most out of them. And this time, once again, does exactly that. Only leaves the right part of the bunch for Xintong to try and deal with. And has to make sure he catches this one really thin, Xintong. He's done that, and he's done that absolutely perfectly. Even if the cue ball hits the brown right in the face, which it does, it still leaves Stevens with absolutely nothing to play for but a safety. So good safety play here throughout the entire match by those players, especially I would say Xintong, because Stevens has given him a couple of chances from the safety game. I think the chances that Xintong has conceded were mostly of his missed chances or the pots that he went for that he probably, in hindsight, probably should not have gone for. Once again, a good exchange there from safeties, off safeties, I should say, from each player. Xintong's turn now. A little acknowledgement with a tap on the table. And this time it is the young world champion that's taking his time on the shot. And an interesting shot selection there as he goes just for an angle there, not really care about where the reds are going to end up, just focusing on the cue ball. Done a really good job with that. And has in the end has managed to cover up the red there. Has gone over the left pocket. So I would have to say a brilliant safety show in terms of the cue ball control. You know, to judge the pace of that to perfection, it takes some mind games, and yeah, takes some technique as well. Now Stevens has no better option than trying to roll up to the reds. To the red, I should say, the lonely one on the cushion. He's missed it. How badly has he missed it by? And has he given that red away to Xintong? I think he'll have a look at it. You know, we already seen him go for those shots that you wouldn't expect a normal player to go for. But I think this time he will have to go back the cue ball. So attempt number 2 here for Stevens. Try and make this one count. It will be interesting to see if he gets anywhere closer this time around. For now, though, it's only 4 points to his opponent. And this time a chance for Xintong to have a couple of 3 points on the fouls, with the position being quite promising and still very early into the frame. So I don't think they'll mean too much unless the frame gets all about just clearing up the reds with no colors on the spots available. Stevens now has attempt number 2. And the cue ball is going a lot better this time. He's going to catch it. Yes, he is. So got away with the second time of asking. Xintong has a potential invitation there and a little temptation, I would say, to play the same red into the cushion and just play the cue ball away from all of the mess here and aim it towards the sort of yellow and brown bunch. He's done exactly that, and he's managed to pot it as well. So it's a little kiss on the brown. Is it good enough for him to have any sort of position? Oh, wow. What a pot. I think he was always going to go for that pot from purely the point of view that he had so many reds between that ball and the cue ball. That he was always going to probably with 90% of a chance. If you look at where the cue ball ended up now, and even if the red stayed over the pocket, he was going to get away with it. But it's a brilliant pot either way, whichever way you look at it. And it's a pot that gives him a chance, once again, to wrap the match up here. As once again, Aaron Hill, prime position to end his match against Kyron Wilson. Xintong here hasn't got enough of cue action on that shot, so he'll probably have to settle for a pink there. Don't think he can get through to the black from that angle. But I think dominant play will resume here from Xintong, at least in the next couple of shots, as the position looks promising. And with him being 15 points clear already, 12 of those coming from the break. This could be a chance to end the match, as I say. There's a little shot with the rest here. I think he'll aim to go for the black this time, as he decides to go a little bit unorthodox way and just go and use the red that was covering up the pocket. So to me, I'm not sure if that's the right choice, because I was always going to think that was going to be the red to use if you ran out of position or you're in trouble. Obviously, Xintong there backing himself that he won't need that red, an extra cushion. So 17 points scored already, making that 24. I think those points, if they just keep building up here for Xintong, they can be absolutely deadly if you Matthew Stevens. Now, once again, the concerning look on Xintong's faces. Has he landed just in between all of the reds? He's got 3 to the right pocket, and they're all covering up each other. We know what happened when he gone for the shot last time, but this time, yeah, he's comfortably there. I'm not too sure what he was checking. I'm probably, now that he's played the shot, he was probably checking just if he can get through to the black from that red. So, certainly able to do that. 25 points on the board, making that 32. Once again, 3 of more reds, and he'll be in with a really nice cushion, with a couple of reds on the cushion as well. 33 points now. Needs to get himself in the groove of those points just mounting on Stevens. And I'm not too sure what on earth he was playing there, because yeah, he'll be absolutely fuming with himself, because it was an easy and straightforward shot. One of those shots that probably even I could have played. Probably still miss it, but I could have played it. But Xintong there ran out of position badly and now has a difficult cut into the middle. As Aaron Hill, by the way, just on BBC, yeah, he is closed off and he has knocked out Kyron Wilson out. So the world champion of a couple of seasons ago is out of Wuhan Open. One of the favorites for me as well, along the likes of Xintong and Trump, has been knocked out by the Irishman Aaron Hill. And while I was watching that, I haven't even seen Xintong miss the red into the middle, because the TNT wasn't showing that. So thanks for that. And now I have to catch up with the scoreboard. Now Stevens had a straightforward opening there. Lands on the blue nicely with the right side as well. So Xintong had 2 chances in the previous frame and in this frame already to close off the match. 5-2 or 5-3 respectively. And both of those chances has given Stevens a way into this match and into this frame. This time the blue is in, the red is in, and once again lands really nicely on the blue there. So had to miss the kiss on that red, because he would have liked to play that one to the middle. It's not going to be the case now, and he has to reach for the rest to do it the hard way. Has to go back for an extension there. So, wow, Kyron lost. Yeah. Aaron Hill knocked out Kyron Wilson with 5-2 win there. Well done to Irishman. Unexpected. Yeah, I would say unexpected, because Wilson was always going to be up for this tournament. He always likes playing in China. And Stevens certainly doesn't, because he just missed the rest shot. As I was saying, that the rest shot percentage has not been kind to him this season. Dude, yeah, it wasn't the easiest one, but it certainly wasn't the hardest. And you can see the shake of the head there from Stevens. He knows, even if it wasn't the easiest, you still should be putting those shots if you want to stay in matches like that. Xintong now has a chance himself into the middle, and he goes. And could he do it from the 3rd time of asking and finally punish Stevens and make him pay for his mistakes here? 41 points, placed 13, so 28 points clear already with 75 on the table. Stevens had absolutely no right to be missing that shot. One thing I would agree with anyone there. You know, if you play safe, that's one thing. It's probably still a waste of a chance, but you absolutely can't be given any sort of chance or invitation to the player of Zhao Xintong's quality. And that's exactly what Stevens done here. And that's exactly what's probably going to cost him here. Xintong there having a little concerning look when the cue ball was rolling up to the blue position, just making sure that he ended up the right side of it. It has this time. Hasn't got an awful lot of angle, but still, it's better to have some than none. It's got enough cue action there to steer up for the red just below the pink. 39 points, so those points are now mounting for Xintong, and in his favor very much against Matthew Stevens, and the red disappears. So 2 more reds, and I think that will be it here for Matthew Stevens, who, you have to say, put up a decent fight. I think, and Zhao pounces, yeah, I think you will. You can't the fact that, you know, sort of Zhao Xintong had 2 chances in the last 2 frames to put the match to bed and he didn't, every single time you give him one more chance, he's always more likely to finish it this time around. And this time it is Zhao Xintong with just a couple of more points here that he needs to put an end to this entertaining match for sure, as he now has a little hesitation on the blacks, so not something that you usually see from Xiao. So clearly just thinking about how to line up the next shot. So I'm not too sure what that's all about, because he's got 51 points on the board, so he only needs the black to win the frame, barring snookers. This was much closer than I expected. No, I always expected it to be closer than a Hon Yu Trump match. But the thing about, as Zhao goes for a little bit of his exhibition shot around the table, misses it. So I think we will see Stevens back on the table, but as a mountain to climb now, Stevens was always going to be a challenge for Zhao, but it was always going to be like, how well does Zhao play? How many chances does he give to Stevens? And how many of those chances can Stevens put into the frame scores to his name? And the answer has been, Stevens could have won this match. You know, I take it this match is over now, because even though Stevens comes back to the table, he's got a snooker to find to tie up, and he's still got 3 reds to deal with, to pot with the black if he needs only 1 snooker. So I take it this match is won now, and it's just a formality for Xintong to get over the line here. But he could have won this match, Matthew Stevens, if he has been playing better, because Xintong was nowhere near his best. You know, if Stevens is in 5th gear, Xintong is gear 1. Like, that was one of the worst performances I've seen in play since, I don't know, since he was back from his 2-year ban. But it's still good enough to beat the world number 50 in Matthew Stevens, as now is Stevens who finds himself snookers. And has he done enough to roll up to that red? Just about. Talk about 5 margins. That wasn't comfy at all. Stevens can't afford to have any errors, as he has a little laugh there with Xintong. So certainly, I think he realizes himself there, Stevens, that he's trying to do something that is not going to be possible. Xintong goes for the same shot he's played to start the break in this frame. And now Stevens once again back to the table. Try and find something with 2 of the reds being still on the cushion. Stevens needs to do something to put them back in the equation. Leaves the red in open play here, so I think the next shot will be the last shot for Zhao Xintong in this match. As it's a straightforward pot, he doesn't really care about the color. It's in. Where's the cue ball? The cue ball is safe. So in a couple of moments' time, Matthew Stevens will reach out with his hand and concede the match. It's been entertaining, that's for sure. It's been probably one-sided, yes, but it's certainly been entertaining. And there you go, there's the handshake. It is Zhao Xintong that wins the round of 32 here in Wuhan Open, and the home favourite and the crowd favourite marches on now with the win against Matthew Stevens. A well-crafted win, I would say. He took some of his chances, and he certainly made Stevens pay for his mistakes. In the end, table 1 match has ended now, with Zhao Xintong winning by 5 frames to 3. Nicely done by Xiao, perfectly done by Xiao in the end. To win when you're not playing particularly well is always one of the nicest things you can do in snooker and in sport in general. Just a little heads up on how the other matches are doing. Xiao Gadun is now going to go 4-2 up in his battle against Ishpreet Singh Chana. Wang Xingbo and Stephen Maguire are now battling for a potential 4-all. The winner of that play will play now Zhao Xintong, as we know he's the winner of play Xintong against Stevens. And Li Peifan is now leading by 4 frames to 2 against Jimmy Robertson. Those are the last 3 matches of day 2 in Wuhan Open in 2025. We'll be back for the morning session tomorrow, so if you like the action, feel free to hit the like button and tune in for the next session as well. Thank you very much for watching though, and we'll see you for more action tomorrow, same time. See you then.